Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. Debuting author James McMillan invites readers to immerse themselves in an enthusiastic weaving of poetry and narrative, alternating between booming classical mythologies and contemporary accessible voices. Kirkus Review writes that McMillan immerses the reader in multiple styles of poetry and epic tales, plus characters that leap into life and all its consequences, from despondent, even suicidal, to discovery, to mystery, to love, sometimes even to absolute triumph, plus a healthy dose of what he calls gnarly haiku, trying to compress so much into so little. James McMillan is a practicing chiropractor in Modesto, California for 45 years, still practicing. He figures over that time he has laid hands on people therapeutically more than 250,000 times, more or less. That's 250,000. Now he sees their children, grandchildren, even a few great-grandchildren, and he says that forces him to contemplate life and death, body, mind, and spirit, and the meaning of it all. James McMillan, author of the critically acclaimed Proud Gods and Commodores, Assorted Poems and Epic Tales, Volume 1, is our guest on This Week in America. Dr. McMillan, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being here. You know, it's something brand new for me. I'm excited to be interviewed.
Well, I'm excited to have you here and talk about this remarkable book that you've written, this concept of combining poems and epic tales, and we'll talk about that as we go through the conversation. But I think it's important because you reflect so much of you in your writing. Let's talk a little bit about you. I gave a brief synopsis of all of the years that you've been seeing your patients there. Give us a little information on your background that sort of shaped who you are as a writer.
You know, I was thinking about that last night because I knew you were going to ask me this question and how I would answer it, and in a paragraph or so. And just to be really brief, I grew up in San Francisco. I grew up in a Catholic, very religious Catholic family. I even went to the seminary to become a priest in my early years, and then discovered sexuality and started, looking. Women's commercials on television became more important to me, and I knew I wasn't going to be a priest. So, I got out, and then in college, I actually became an atheist and studying, got really involved with B.F. Skinner, who's a psychologist. And his thing is there is no free will, that you are what happens to you, that's it completely. And that turned me, and I really went into that. And when you do that, when you feel that, there is nothing but what you hear, see, feel, and so on. If you have any compassion, you become a socialist, and which is what I did. I became a big time, revolutionary at the time. Went to Cuba, blah blah blah, and then when after my mid-20s, I had just a strange experience. I denied before that I denied anything metaphysical. And then I had, in a week, I started having these strange dreams. And then I had what my kids call my Popeye moment. When I woke up and I just said to myself, I am what I am because that's what I am. And they said, and my kids go, toot, Popeye. and then everything changed for me, everything completely. I realized that the socialist concept of a new man, socialism, you have to totally control the society, the laws, even what people think, even what they speak. The idea is you totally control that to develop what's called the new man, which is almost like a messiah. And, I just realized that that's nonsense. That life doesn't flow from outside in. Life flows from above down and from inside out. It's like a river down.
Yes.
And I discovered that, and that changed my life. And then I shortly got into chiropractic, and the whole holistic approach of chiropractic. I've been doing that ever since. That's way different than being a revolutionary, I have to tell you.
Yeah, then how it started, and that was the Fidel Castro time, and I know you mentioned sort of casually there, you went to Cuba, but you were, in a setting with Castro. It had to be very impactful, and All of that background has made James McMillan the excellent writer that he is. His book is Proud Gods and Commodores, Assorted Poems and Epic Tales, Volume 1. You'll find it available at Amazon, the usual places. I thank Adventure Time Narratives, the publicist, for arranging our conversation with James today. I tried to mention in a nutshell, and it's somewhat difficult to do, what this book is about and how the book was written. It's such a fascinating concept that you bring to this, and because of that, it's receiving excellent reviews. In a nutshell, what is the book about?
Okay, actually, it's volume 1. There, 2 volumes. The next one's coming out in a couple of months, already written. What it really is a preview. It's like a trailer for what I've written, or I am writing, is 2 separate sagas, huge sagas. One takes place 2,000 years ago, and one's current, modern. And there's a relationship between the 2 of them, and between one of the characters. And I've been writing these for sagas. I've got, about 12 or 14 books already written. That and 3, I write everything longhand. I got 3 or 4 longhand that need to be put into the computer. And then
Wow.
Going on. So I got a lot of stuff, and it's all about the adventures. In the ancient one, it's called, the name of that is the Journal of Tyrannus the Helvetian, the man who loves wild red cat woman, Kajana the Akatani. I love that title. It's great.
Yes.
And that's about a Helvetian, which is modern Switzerland, but they were Helvetians. And he was in the battle against Julius Caesar in the Gallic Wars and so on. And it's all about him and his adventures and whatnot. And then the modern one, and is with the main character is Stephen, or Stevie, he was mostly is called, and his adventures from growing up to college to he becomes a Marine sniper, and then afterwards and then gets deeply involved in trying to deal with a drug cartel, and his sister, because big in his life, and he nicknames her High Pockets because she carries things around in her bra. Ever since she's a teenager, she doesn't carry a purse. She just puts them in her bra. And so when she needs a handkerchief, she reaches in her credit card, or when she was smoking a cigarette or a lighter, it's all carried in her bra. And therefore the nickname High Pockets. And that's the name of that saga, High Pockets and the Blue Guitar, searching for the face of God. And her nickname for him is Blue Guitar. And that's what, in a nutshell, that's what's going on. And here in this volume 1 are excerpts from those 2 sagas. That even some of the poetry, half the poetry is my own. The other half is actually poetry supposedly written by characters in my sagas. And that's what this volume 1's all about.
This is such and I'm going to say an epic project, a big project.
I'd say so.
Yeah, talk about how big this is and how you go about doing that. I'm still fascinated by writing 2 separate sagas, one ancient, one modern, and they relate. What are the challenges in doing that? And talk about the scope of what you're doing. I mean, you're basically taking on a couple of books in one almost.
Yeah, it's hard to explain in a sense that it just got started. Actually, I was writing a poem in which there's a couple that are leaving San Francisco, going under the Golden Gate Bridge in their own sloop, in their own sailing boat, and they're standing on the bow of the sailing boat, hugging each other and off into their adventures. And that was boom. From that image, everything has come. It just boom. So, and then it just keeps happening and happening, keeps going and going, developing and so on. When I think I'm finished, I'm not. My wife and kids said, "When will you ever be done with that thing?" And it just keeps on developing. Like I'm at a loss to explain it. It just keeps on going, and characters, keep on coming. They come in and they go, and it takes up half my life is involved in one way or another, in my conscious life, one way or another, with these 2 sagas, and the other half, of course, with being a chiropractor in my family and so on. And it really took me. I have to say, in my younger years, when I was in college, I graduated in English, creative writing was my graduation degree. And so I was always involved in creative writing. Then when I became a chiropractor, I started doing a lot of medical reports. And there was nothing more anti-poetic than medical reports.
I can imagine, yes.
Oh gosh, there's just, it's amazing how, but I did, hundreds of those, and that's when then I burst out of those with that image I talked about with the couple on the sailing boat. So that's,
well, this
in a nutshell, that's what it is.
This really fits into the realm of creative, and I mentioned you use sort of in the Tales of the Sagas a different style of writing. Sort of briefly explain that to me, how you do that, how you weave them together.
Well, see, there's various styles. There's poetry, there's prose, there's epic poetry, there's stream of consciousness, there's like Shakespearean poetry, there's verse, there's free verse, and so on. There's all these different styles. And what I'm trying to do is actually put all of them together, using mostly epic poetry as my style. Epic poetry appears differently on the page. Prose is just one line after another, one line after another. When prose, what you're doing is you're sitting in a sedan, driving down the road, one hand on the steering wheel, and looking out the windows, and it's the same thing going on. What I'm trying to do is to put together a style that's like riding a motorcycle. That you have to stay alert, you have to stay balanced, you have to keep understanding, seeing what you're seeing and understanding.
Yes.
And actually, even more, it's like flying a plane. I used to fly Cessnas, one-engine Cessnas. And when you fly a plane, it's way different than driving a car, because there's 3 dimensions you're dealing with, and there's not forward and backward, side to side, but up and down, and that's huge when you're flying a plane. You get screwed up in that, and there's danger.
Yep, yes.
So it's the same thing with what I'm trying to do in my style, is make that kind of appearance, of the way the words appear on the page and the way it happens. I'm sorry, let me knock this out there.
Well, that's an amazing analogy. I never looked at it, but that's a great way to explain how you do this, and you weave these so well together. Let's talk about character creation for a little bit. How do you go about creating these characters? And it really seems when you read, and the book, by the way, is Proud Gods and Commodores, Assorted Poems and Epic Tales. This is Volume 1 by James McMillan. That's McMillan. Book available at Amazon, the usual places. A link on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Volume 2 will be coming out shortly. Talk about how you develop these characters. And I was mentioning you. It seems like you have an emotional relationship with these. In fact, as you were just describing it, it's hard to get them out of your life because they are sort of real to you. How do you develop the characters, and how do you create this emotional relationship? You have it, the author, then we have it. It transfers to us as the reader. How does that happen?
There's an old saying, no tears in the author, no tears in the reader. You know, so I get, created. I think of Charles Dickens one time, or so the story goes. He's running, he's going down the street, he's hugging people, he's crying because he's telling them, "Little Nell is dying, Little Nell is dying," and they go, "Who the hell is Little Nell?" And that's a character of his, and she was, dying. And he was off on the street, because characters just become so real to you when you start creating them. They take their own. It's kind of like you're leading a dog on a leash. I have my puppy, I lead on the leash, but he takes off and he's pulling me where he wants to go and jerking me in 7 different directions. And characters that you visualized what they're going to do become way different. They morph into something way different. A classic character. Forgive me, my phone is going off. I should have had good. Thank you. My wife is out there dealing with it. So
thank you.
A classic character is that I created was a character called Rondo, who is from the ancient saga. He's like a drill instructor type or whatever, and I visualized him as being like the drill instructor in what's that movie? Full Metal Jacket.
Yes.
Where that guy. That's what I visualize it. But whoa, I visualize him as like a kind of Achilles guy, like from the Iliad, But boom, he took off in a totally different direction. He became more like Hector from the Iliad. And in fact, he even rides a horse called Hector. And it was just, it's just, they take over and they run with you. And it's hard to explain why that happens, but it does. And not every character, it's not everybody, but it's some. Now, I'll tell you the ones that are troublesome, really, is when you're trying to create some evil people. And it's kind of fearful because you're trying to create the consciousness of evil, but you don't want it to bite you, terms of, like a vampire biting you, where you're chasing running from smallpox or something. But yet you want to create the concept of evil, and that gets your attention. That's for sure.
It's interesting what goes into writing a book like this with the style, the technique that's used by James McMillan. The book is Proud Gods and Commodores, Assorted Poems and Epic Tales, Volume 1, Volume 2 to be out shortly. Time is going by so quickly. A few minutes left in the program. What you do is so enchanting. It's like, wow, you have taken a couple of different skill sets and merged them to this remarkable book, Proud Gods and Commodores. What do you hope people take away from reading this book and then shortly in Volume 2?
What I'm hoping is that I can reach people's consciousness and have an effect on their all the various characters that I created in stories and tales and predicaments and conflicts and whatnot. I would like to reach into people's consciousness and have an effect in the sense of that. I hate to say this because it sounds so egotistical, but I'd like to have them become more alive. If my books do anything, and people say, well, they make me more alive, I am happy as a clam. However happy a clam is, but that would really please me.
Well, I understand they're very happy, and that is a good thing when they say that the books make people happy, the readers happy. I'm going to ask you, what has this done to you? Does this make you happy as you are creating, as you are spending maybe half of your life thinking of these characters, thinking of the stories you're going to tell? What impact has this had on you as a writer?
Whoa, well, I have to tell you, it's very exciting. I get up every morning and 6. I try to get up at 6 o'clock every morning. I write until when I'm going into the office, I write until 8, and then on days that I'm not going to the office, I'll write until noon or 1 or 2 o'clock. And that's time that is just totally remote. It's like being on a different planet. It's if I get a phone call, it's like pricking a balloon. It just affects what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
So therefore, I don't want phone calls. And it is a different world, no question about it. It can be exciting and it can be triumphant. It can be really depressing on occasion and stuff when I'm creating some of these characters. But to me, it makes me more alive doing it, and makes me more understanding of life, or trying to understand life. I used to be an atheist and grew up as an atheist. That's one of the reasons I became a socialist. But then when I changed after that Popeye moment, then you're more metaphysical. I'm not a religious person, but boy, there's something going on out there spiritually that's greater than ourselves. And I'm trying to, deal with that in my work and just trying to understand the flow of life. As far as I can see, it's when you're B.F. Skinner.
Yes,
he would say the flow was from outside in. That you are what happens to you is, that's why socialism.
We all sort of struggle, don't you think, with that? And a couple minutes left here, but that's fascinating. We all sort of struggle with these questions that you're asking, but you're able to, through the books that you write, in this book, Proud Gods and Commodores, you're able to sort of give us some direction and bring us into your world where you're exploring all of these topics, and it's so important. A couple minutes left here. Let's a couple of questions as you're talking here. When did you first start writing all of this? When did this whole concept come to you?
It was just after the millennium. I started writing this about 2004. That's when I was starting to write poetry again. And that's when it kicked in, and I've been writing it ever since. So it's pushing 20 years. I've been writing all these things. 15 years, more like 15 years. I've been writing these, and they keep on going. So that's what I tell everybody. Don't call me, I'll call you.
And you've got, but just not between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning. Just send me an email. Don't call me during my writing time in the morning.
Right.
You've got so many of these books ready to go. I'm going to take a minute here at the end. Who influences you? Who do you like to read when you've got some time and you want to get lost in a book for enjoyment or maybe ideas? Who do you like to read?
Well, actually, recently, it's not the fiction I've been reading. It's Jordan Peterson. I've been fascinated by Jordan Peterson and things he's writing, and his thought process. But when it comes to fiction, I'm torn between two styles. I grew up on Hemingway, who has, of course, come upon bad times recently, and late after Hemingway, Faulkner, and they're two totally different styles.
Yes. One
stream of consciousness, and one is direct, right, punching you in the face. And those are the two writers that affected me the most. Currently, I'm not reading a lot of fiction. Currently, I'm just writing it. I've got I spend too much time writing it. But
well, there's nothing wrong with that. And the fact that you have authors that you like from sort of different styles says something about the open mind that you bring to all of this, the fascination with what's out there and answering these questions. James McMillan has been our guest on the program. That's McMillan. This book is Proud Gods and Commodores, Assorted Poems and Epic Tales, Volume 1, to be followed by Volume 2 very shortly. You'll find the book where books are sold. I'll direct you to Amazon. That's easy to remember, and all of this on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Dr. McMillan, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. Congratulations on an excellent book that you've written, very thought-provoking, entertaining on so many levels, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about Volume 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got a bunch ready to go, so I'm ready to talk when you get them published. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure. Everybody loves to blow their own solo, and when you're doing it on an interview, that's even better.
Well,
Thank
you're a very gifted writer, and it's been a pleasure having you on the program. And once again, I thank Adventure Time Narratives, the publicist, working with Dr. McMillan on the book Proud Gods and Commodores, Assorted Poems and Epic Tales. James McMillan, the author. You'll find it at Amazon, the usual places. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.